Millionaire marries his daughter's nanny on a BET, but what he discovers on his wedding night leaves him speechless. Thaddeus Harrington leaned back in his leather chair, the dim light of the bar casting a warm glow over the faces of his friends. The air was thick with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses, a mix of expensive whiskey and the faint scent of cigars. As he surveyed the scene, he felt a familiar sense of unease wash over him. Despite his immense success as a technology mogul, there was something missing in his life, a sense of fulfillment that eluded him. "Come on, Thaddeus. You can't keep hiding behind your work forever," one of his friends, Marcus, teased, lifting his glass in a mock toast. "You've got to get out there and find someone. After all, you're still a handsome billionaire." The group erupted in laughter, but Thaddeus felt his cheeks flush. He knew they meant well, but their jests only highlighted the emptiness of his personal life. It had been years since his marriage ended, and though he had dated a few women, none had sparked any real connection. He felt like a spectator in his own life, watching as others found love and companionship while he remained trapped in a cycle of work and solitude. "I'm telling you, there's someone out there for you," another friend chimed in, grinning. "You just need to stop being so picky. How about a little wager? You know, to spice things up." "A wager?" Thaddeus raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. He was used to high-stakes bets in the boardroom, but this was different. "Yeah. I bet you can't win over Elara, your daughter's babysitter, in 1 month," Marcus challenged, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "If you fail, you donate $1 million to charity. Easy money for you, right?" Thaddeus hesitated, his mind racing. Elara was a bright spot in his daughter Lily's life, a young woman full of energy and creativity. He had noticed how effortlessly she connected with Lily, bringing laughter and joy into their home. But could he really see her as more than just a babysitter? "Sure, I'll take that bet," Thaddeus finally said, a grin spreading across his face. The thrill of the challenge ignited something within him. "But if I win, you guys owe me a weekend at that new luxury resort." "Deal!" Marcus exclaimed, slapping Thaddeus on the back. The group cheered, raising their glasses in celebration of the new game. As the night wore on, the laughter echoed in his ears, but Thaddeus's thoughts drifted to Elara. He could picture her bright smile, the way her hair danced in the breeze as she played with Lily. But he was determined to do more than just win a bet. He wanted to understand her, to know what made her tick. The next day, Thaddeus found himself watching Elara from the patio, her laughter ringing out like music as she played hide-and-seek with Lily in the backyard. He had always admired her gentle way with children, how she seemed to bring out the best in his daughter. But today, he felt an unfamiliar stirring within him. "Dad, look! Elara found me!" Lily squealed, emerging from behind a bush, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Thaddeus couldn't help but smile at the sight. "Good hiding spot, Lily." "Elara, you're a magician," he said, stepping outside to join them. "Just lucky, I guess," Elara replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she knelt down to Lily's level. "Now, who's ready for a treasure hunt?" "Me!" Lily shouted, bouncing on her toes. As Elara led Lily away, Thaddeus felt an inexplicable urge to follow. He wanted to know more about this woman who brought so much joy into his daughter's life. Gathering his courage, he approached them, casually leaning against the fence. "Treasure hunt, huh? What's the prize?" Thaddeus asked, feigning nonchalance. Elara looked up, her expression brightening. "A secret treasure. But only if you can solve the clues." "Is that a challenge?" he smirked, his competitive side igniting. "Absolutely," she replied, her tone playful. "But I warn you, I'm pretty good at this." "I'll take my chances," he said, a spark of excitement in his voice. As they spent the afternoon searching for hidden treasures, little trinkets Elara had cleverly placed around the yard, Thaddeus discovered a side of her that intrigued him. She was not just a babysitter, she was creative, imaginative, and had a zest for life that was infectious. "Tell me, Elara, what would be your ultimate treasure?" he asked, curious. She paused, her eyes reflecting a deep thought. "I've always dreamed of having my own art gallery," she admitted, her voice softening. "But it feels so far away sometimes." "Art gallery?" Thaddeus echoed, genuinely surprised. "You're an artist?" Elara nodded, a hint of shyness creeping into her demeanor. "I paint in my free time. It's my passion." "Why haven't I seen any of your work?" he inquired, intrigued. "I guess I've never had the confidence to show it," she admitted, a hint of vulnerability in her tone. "But I love it. It makes me feel alive." Thaddeus felt a tug at his heart. Here was a woman with dreams and aspirations, and yet she seemed to hold back, almost as if she didn't believe she deserved them. He wanted to encourage her, to help her see the beauty in her talent. "I'd love to see your art sometime," he said sincerely. "Maybe you could show me?" Elara's eyes widened, and a smile broke through her initial hesitation. "Really? You'd want to?" "Of course," he replied, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I think it's amazing that you have a passion like that. It's inspiring." As they continued their hunt, Thaddeus couldn't shake the growing admiration for Elara. He found himself wanting to know more about her, to understand her dreams and fears. But beneath the surface, a nagging thought lingered: was he falling for her? Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Thaddeus found himself leaning against the porch railing, lost in thought. The bet had started as a reckless challenge, but now he felt a genuine desire to learn more about Elara and her world. "Thaddeus?" Elara's voice broke through his reverie. She stood at the doorway, her silhouette framed by the golden light of the setting sun. "Can I join you?" "Of course," he replied, motioning for her to come closer. They stood side by side, watching the waves crash against the shore. The atmosphere was charged, and Thaddeus could feel the weight of the silence between them. "Thanks for today," Elara said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was really fun." "I enjoyed it too," he admitted, glancing at her. "You have this incredible way with Lily." "I'm grateful for that." Elara smiled, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. "I love spending time with her. She's such a bright light." Thaddeus felt a warmth spread through him at her words. "You're a bright light too, Elara," he said, his voice sincere. "I see that in you." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. Thaddeus felt a pull toward her, a connection that was both exhilarating and terrifying. He wanted to know her, to understand her heart, but the bet loomed over him like a shadow. What would happen if he truly fell for her? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with stars, Thaddeus realized that this wager was no longer just a game. It had become something much deeper, an opportunity to discover not only Elara but also a part of himself that had long been dormant. With a mixture of hope and uncertainty, he prepared himself for the journey ahead, one that could lead to love or heartbreak. As days turned into a blur of laughter and unexpected moments, Thaddeus Harrington found himself increasingly drawn to Elara, the vibrant young woman who had become a fixture in his life. Their interactions, which had started as mere attempts to fulfill his reckless bet, slowly morphed into something far more profound. It was during one of those seemingly casual moments that Thaddeus began to realize just how much Elara had captivated him. One sunny afternoon, Thaddeus decided to take a break from the relentless pace of his tech empire. He strolled through the sprawling garden of his mansion, the salty breeze brushing against his face, carrying with it the sounds of laughter from the beach below. There, in a cozy corner under a large oak tree, he spotted Elara. She was sitting cross-legged on a blanket, a canvas propped up before her, paintbrush in hand, completely engrossed in her work. The sunlight danced upon her hair, creating a halo effect that made her look ethereal. "Hey, Elara," he called out, his voice breaking through her concentration. She looked up, her green eyes lighting up with surprise and delight. "Thaddeus. Come see." She gestured him over, her excitement palpable. He hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should intrude upon her creative space, but her warm invitation pulled him closer. "What are you working on?" Thaddeus asked, genuinely curious as he settled down beside her. "It's a seascape," she replied, glancing at her canvas. "I wanted to capture the way the waves shimmer under the sun. It reminds me of my childhood days spent by the beach." She dipped her brush into a vibrant blue, swiping it across the canvas with practiced ease. Thaddeus leaned closer, studying her strokes. "You have a real talent. I didn't know you could paint." Elara paused and looked at him, a hint of vulnerability in her expression. "I've always loved art. It was my escape growing up. But, you know, life gets in the way sometimes. I had to put it on hold for a while." "Why?" he inquired, sensing the weight behind her words. She sighed, her gaze drifting to the horizon where the ocean met the sky. "It's complicated. I had to take care of my family after things fell apart. Art didn't seem practical then." Her voice softened, and a shadow crossed her face, but she quickly brightened. "But now, I'm finally starting to find my way back to it." Thaddeus felt a pang of empathy for her, realizing how much he had taken for granted in his own life. "That must have been tough," he said, choosing his words carefully. "You're incredibly strong for pushing through that." Elara smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you, but I'm just trying to follow my dreams now. I want to have my own gallery someday." "A gallery?" Thaddeus echoed, intrigued. "I can see it now, Elara's Gallery of Dreams. It sounds amazing." "That's the dream," she laughed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "But dreams take money, and I'm not exactly rolling in it." Thaddeus felt a strange tug at his heart. "What if I could help you with that?" he blurted out, realizing the implication of his words only after they left his lips. Elara raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting to one of skepticism. "Why would you want to do that?" He hesitated, caught off guard by her reaction. "I mean, it's just. You're passionate about it, and I think it's important to support what you love." "Is it really that simple for you?" she challenged, her tone light yet pointed. "To just throw money at a passion project?" Thaddeus leaned back, a small smile playing on his lips. "I suppose not. But it's more than just money for me. I admire your determination. You inspire me." Elara looked at him intently, searching for sincerity. "Inspire you? Really? I'm just a babysitter trying to make it as an artist." "That's not true," he replied, shaking his head. "You're more than that. You have this light about you. It's refreshing." He watched her cheeks flush slightly, a hint of color that made his heart race. Their laughter echoed into the air, creating a bridge between their worlds that hadn't existed before. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the garden, Thaddeus felt an undeniable connection forming between them. Days passed, and Thaddeus found himself stealing moments with Elara whenever he could. They shared countless conversations, each one peeling back layers of their lives. One evening, he invited her for a walk along the beach. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the sound of the waves crashing provided a soothing backdrop. "Elara," Thaddeus began hesitantly, "I wanted to ask you something. Why did you choose to be a nanny? You could do so much more." She paused, her footsteps slowing. "It's not just about the money. I love kids. Being with Lily brings me joy. And it's a stable job while I figure out my next steps," she explained, her voice steady yet laced with a hint of sadness. "But what about your art?" Thaddeus pressed gently. "It seems like you have so much to offer." Elara looked at him, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. I don't know if I can make it as an artist. It's a risk, and I've been afraid of failing. Failure is part of the process, he said, his tone earnest. You won't know until you try. Her gaze fell to the sand as she contemplated his words. You don't understand. I've put so much on hold to get here. What if I chase this dream and it all falls apart again? Thaddeus stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. Elara, look at me. You're already so much more than you give yourself credit for. Just because things didn't work out before doesn't mean they won't now. You deserve to try. She studied him, a mixture of fear and hope in her eyes. What if I fail and it breaks me? Thaddeus stepped closer, lowering his voice to a soft murmur. Then I'll be right there to help you pick up the pieces. You're not alone in this. The sincerity in his words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Elara seemed to weigh his promise. Then, as if a dam had broken, she smiled, albeit nervously. You really mean that, don't you? I do, he replied without hesitation. But just as the tension between them began to shift, a familiar figure appeared in the distance. Elara's expression darkened. Oh no, not him, she muttered. Thaddeus turned to see the tall, confident silhouette of her ex-boyfriend approaching, a smirk plastered on his face. What does he want? Thaddeus asked, a protective instinct rising within him. I don't know, Elara replied, her voice tight. But he always knows how to show up at the worst possible moments. As they braced themselves for the confrontation, Thaddeus felt a surge of determination. No matter what, he would stand by her side. The connection they were building was too precious to let anyone disrupt it. The grand ballroom of the Harrington mansion shimmered under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. Thaddeus Harrington stood at the center of it all, feeling both exhilarated and trapped in a web of his own making. His friends, a rowdy bunch of successful entrepreneurs, were gathered around him, raising their glasses in a toast. Here's to Thaddeus, the man who thinks he can win over the best babysitter in California, one of them shouted, causing a ripple of laughter to swell through the crowd. Thaddeus forced a chuckle, the sound hollow in his chest. He could see Elara across the room, her warm smile lighting up her face as she interacted with Lily. The sight of her made his heart race, but the laughter of his friends felt like a noose tightening around him. They were oblivious to the growing complexities of his feelings. What had begun as a game now felt like a betrayal of everything he had come to value about Elara. As he attempted to engage in the jovial banter, Thaddeus's mind drifted to the conversation he had with Elara just days before. Her laughter, her dreams, and the way she lit up when she spoke about art had captured his attention in ways he never thought possible. Yet here he was, standing in front of a group that saw her as nothing more than a trophy to be won. Thaddeus, another friend called out, snapping him back to the moment. Are you going to let her know about the bet or what? It's high time you put your money where your mouth is. The laughter around him was infectious, but it only deepened his discomfort. I think it's time we all had a little more respect for our guests, Thaddeus said, his voice steadier than he felt. Elara is more than just a bet. More than a bet, one of his friends shot back, faux incredulity painted across his face. Come on, man. You're not actually falling for her, are you? That wasn't part of the deal. Thaddeus's stomach twisted. It's not a joke to me, he said, the tension in his voice growing palpable. She's a person, not some game piece to be manipulated. His friends exchanged glances, the atmosphere shifting from lighthearted to tense. Whoa, easy there, Thad. We were just having a little fun, one of them said, raising his hands defensively. Fun at her expense, Thaddeus replied sharply, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. He could see Elara glancing in their direction, her expression shifting from joy to confusion. The last thing he wanted was for her to feel small or ridiculed because of him. Go tell her how you really feel then. Make your move, another friend egged on, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within Thaddeus. With determination igniting within him, Thaddeus pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding as he approached Elara. She stood by a table adorned with decorative candles, her hand absent-mindedly tracing the rim of a wine glass. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she noticed his approach, but there was a flicker of apprehension in them too. "Hey, Elara," he said, forcing a smile despite the tumult of emotions swirling inside him. "Hi, Thaddeus," she replied, her voice soft but laced with an edge of uncertainty. "Are you enjoying the party?" "Not as much as I thought I would," he admitted, glancing back at his friends, who were now watching him with playful smirks. "There's something I need to tell you." "Oh." Elara's brow furrowed slightly, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Is everything okay?" Thaddeus hesitated, the weight of his confession pressing heavily on him. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he began, choosing his words with care. "There was a bet. I made a bet with my friends that I could win you over in a month." Elara's face paled, her eyes widening in disbelief. "A bet? You did this for a bet?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No. No, that's not how I meant for it to happen," he rushed to explain. "At first, it was just a challenge, but then I got to know you. I realized that you're not just some prize to be won. You're incredible, Elara. You've changed the way I see things." She stepped back, shaking her head. This is so wrong, Thaddeus. I can't believe you treat me like that. I opened up to you, and I thought you were different." The hurt in her voice pierced through him like a dagger. "I know I messed up, and I take full responsibility. But please, believe me when I say my feelings for you are real. This isn't just a game for me anymore." "Then why did you let them talk about it? Why didn't you stop them?" Elara's tone was sharp, her hurt evident. "I didn't want to ruin the moment," Thaddeus admitted, shame washing over him. "I thought I could find a way to make it right without dragging you into it. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." "I can't be part of this," she said, her voice unsteady. "I can't be someone's conquest, Thaddeus. I deserve better." As Elara turned to leave, Thaddeus felt a cold panic rise within him. "Elara, wait." He reached out, desperate to keep her from walking away. "Please, let me explain." But she was already retreating, the hurt etched across her features like a storm cloud ready to burst. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady himself. What had he done? The laughter and music around him faded into the background as he confronted the reality of his actions. The joyous atmosphere of the gala felt suffocating, the walls closing in around him. "Thaddeus," one of his friends called, approaching him with a bemused expression. "What was that all about? You looked like you were about to propose or something." "Shut up," Thaddeus snapped, the tension in his voice cutting through the joviality surrounding them. "You don't understand." "Don't understand what?" "It was just a joke, man. You said you could win her over, and now you're acting like you're in love or something." "Maybe I am." Thaddeus shouted, surprising even himself. "Maybe I really do care about her. You think this is just some game? She's not just some girl to me." His friends fell silent, taken aback by his sudden outburst. "Whoa, calm down, Thad," one of them said, raising his hands again. "We were just having fun. No need to get all worked up." But Thaddeus turned away from them, his heart racing as he scanned the room for Elara. He needed to make things right, to show her that he was serious about what he had said. After a moment of searching, he spotted her standing by the large glass doors that led to the outdoor terrace, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she gazed out at the ocean. The moonlight shimmered on the water, but all he could see was the pain in her expression. "Elara," he called out, striding toward her. She didn't turn around, but he could see her shoulders tense at the sound of his voice. "Can we talk?" please. Slowly, she turned to face him, her expression guarded. What's left to say, Thaddeus? You've made your intentions clear. No, I haven't, he insisted, his voice earnest. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I could show you what I've learned about myself through this, about how much you mean to me. But I failed to do that, and for that, I'm truly sorry. Elara's gaze softened just a fraction, but the hurt was still present. You still don't get it, do you? I opened up to you, trusted you, and you turned it into a game. How can I trust you again? Thaddeus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. I want to earn your trust back, Elara. I understand that it won't happen overnight. I just need you to give me a chance to prove that I can be better than who I was before. She looked at him, her expression wavering between anger and something softer, more vulnerable. You think saying sorry is enough? You think you can just erase the pain you caused? No, I don't, he admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. But I want to try. I want to show you that my feelings are real, that I'm not the same man who made a stupid bet. Elara hesitated, searching his eyes for sincerity. He felt exposed under her gaze, but he held her look, willing her to see the truth in his heart. What if I can't forgive you? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Then I'll keep trying, he replied earnestly. I'll keep trying until you believe me. You deserve that much. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Finally, Elara let out a shaky breath. It's going to take time, Thaddeus. I'm not sure. Thaddeus Harrington wandered through the vibrant park, his heart pounding. The salty breeze from the nearby ocean mingled with the earthy scent of freshly mown grass. He had spent the last few days contemplating how to mend the rift between him and Elara. The previous evening's gala had been a disaster, and he realized too late how his friend's teasing had hurt her. Now, he sought her out, knowing that her art was a sanctuary for her, and it was there that he hoped to find her. As he approached, he noticed her sitting on a weathered bench, lost in her world of colors and canvases. The sun bathed her in a warm glow, illuminating the freckles on her nose and the way her hair danced in the light wind. She was painting a seascape, her brush gliding over the canvas with a grace that mirrored the waves crashing against the shore. For a moment, Thaddeus hesitated, feeling the weight of his own mistakes pressing heavily on his chest. Hey, Elara, he called softly, trying to keep his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. She looked up, her expression a mixture of surprise and wariness. Thaddeus. What are you doing here? Her tone was guarded, and he could sense the distance she had put between them. I wanted to talk. Can I sit? He gestured to the empty space beside her. After a brief pause, she nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on her painting, the brush moving methodically. He took a deep breath, gathering the courage he needed to speak. First, I want to apologize, he began, his voice earnest. I didn't mean for you to find out about the bet like that. It was thoughtless, and I am truly sorry for how it made you feel. Elara finally turned to face him, her expression softening slightly but still guarded. You don't understand, do you? It wasn't just about the bet. It was about how you approached me, as if I were just a challenge to win. It made me feel used. Thaddeus felt a pang in his chest at her words. I know, and that's not who I am. I realize now how shallow I was being. I came to see you as a goal instead of a person. But the more I got to know you, the more I realized how wrong I was. You're not a prize to be won, Elara. You're so much more than that. She paused, looking at him with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Then why did you pursue me in the first place? Was it just to prove a point to your friends? No, he replied, shaking his head vehemently. At first, yes, I'll admit it. But then I got to know you. I saw how you light up when you talk about your art, how passionate you are about it. You've made me see life differently, and I want to be a better man because of you. Elara studied him for a moment, her brow furrowed in thought. It's hard to believe you've changed that quickly. People don't just transform overnight, Thaddeus. I know it's hard to trust me, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. But I'm willing to prove it to you. I want to help you with your art. I want to support your dreams, whatever they may be. She raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. Support my dreams? You mean the gallery I've always wanted? Yes. I want to invest in it, help you make it happen. You deserve that chance. I've been so wrapped up in my own life, my own ambitions, that I forgot what it means to truly care for someone. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for her reaction. I would do anything to help you achieve what you want. Elara's expression shifted as she processed his words. It sounds great, but how can I be sure you're not just saying this to win me back? What if it's just another game for you? I understand your doubts, Thaddeus said earnestly. But this isn't a game for me anymore. I want to be transparent with you. I want to share my life with you, not just as a father or a businessman but as someone who genuinely cares about you. I've realized that I need to let go of my old self and embrace this new journey. And I want you by my side. She looked back at her painting, her thoughts clearly racing. The colors on the canvas reflected the turmoil in her heart, vivid blues and greens merging with muted grays, just like her conflicting feelings for him. You have to understand, Thaddeus. Trust isn't something I can give away easily. It will take time, and we'll need to be honest with each other. I'm willing to wait, he replied, determination lacing his voice. I will do whatever it takes to earn your trust. I'll prove to you that I'm serious about this. Elara turned to him, her eyes searching his for sincerity. And what if I let you in, and you hurt me again? I don't know if I can handle that. I won't hurt you again, Elara, he said, his heart aching at the thought of causing her pain. I've seen what I've lost by being selfish. I don't want to lose you. I want to be better, not just for you but for myself, too. A silence settled between them, heavy with unspoken words and lingering emotions. Thaddeus felt a flicker of hope as he watched her consider his offer. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. If I give you a chance, you have to promise that you'll be honest with me, no matter what. I need to know that I can trust you. I promise, he said, his voice firm and steady. I'll do everything I can to be the man you deserve. Just give me that chance. Elara studied him for a long moment, and then she sighed, a mixture of relief and trepidation washing over her. Okay, Thaddeus. I'll give you a chance. But know that it's not going to be easy. I wouldn't expect it to be, he replied, a smile breaking through his worry. I'll work hard for it. I just want to be part of your world, to support your dreams and be someone you can rely on. As they sat together, the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the park. Elara returned to her canvas, and Thaddeus watched her paint, feeling a sense of peace settling over him. For the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. He was ready to embrace this new beginning, not just as a man seeking love, but as a partner willing to nurture and cherish the woman who had opened his heart to something deeper than he had ever known. Thaddeus stood on the balcony of his expansive beachside mansion, the salty breeze tousling his hair as he gazed out at the shimmering Pacific Ocean. It had been a whirlwind of emotions since he made the audacious bet with his friends. What had started as mere entertainment, a challenge to conquer Elara, his daughter Lily's beloved babysitter, had spiraled into something far deeper. He was no longer just a man on a mission, he was a man transformed, and it frightened him and exhilarated him in equal measure. His thoughts drifted back to Elara, the vibrant young woman who had opened his eyes to a world he had long since forgotten. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her passion for art, her resilience, and her infectious laughter captivated him. He had watched her work on her paintings, her brow furrowed in concentration, each stroke of the brush telling a story of her life, her dreams. And as he thought of her, a rush of determination surged through him. Alright, time to put my money where my mouth is, he muttered to himself, clenching his fists as he turned away from the ocean's vastness. He had made a decision: he would help Elara achieve her dream of having her own art gallery. It wasn't just about winning her trust, it was about supporting her in a way that mattered, in a way that showed he truly saw her for who she was. The next day, Thaddeus arranged a meeting with Elara at a quaint cafe near the beach, a place where the locals gathered, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods. He arrived early, his heart racing with anticipation. As he waited, he reviewed his plans in his mind, rehearsing the words he would say. When Elara walked in, the sun catching her hair just right, she brought a light with her that seemed to brighten the entire room. Thaddeus stood up, his heart pounding as he took in her presence. She wore a simple sundress, yet it was the sparkle in her eyes that truly stole his breath away. "Hey, Thaddeus," she greeted, her smile warm and genuine. "You look different." "Different?" "In a good way, I hope," he replied, returning her smile but with a hint of nervousness. "Definitely in a good way," she said, taking a seat across from him. "So, what's this about? You sounded serious on the phone." Thaddeus took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "I wanted to talk to you. About your art. I've been thinking about how passionate you are and how talented you are. I want to help you." Elara raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "Help me? How?" "I want to invest in your dream of having your own gallery," he said, watching her reaction closely. "I know you've mentioned it before, and I believe in your talent. You deserve a space to showcase your work." Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, she was speechless. "Thaddeus, you don't have to do that. I mean, it's a huge commitment. What do you get out of it?" "Nothing," he said earnestly, leaning forward. "I get to see you thrive. I want to be a part of something meaningful, and I believe you are that something. This isn't about the bet anymore, it's about you." Elara's expression softened, and he could see the wheels turning in her mind as she processed his offer. "But what if it doesn't work out? What if I fail?" "Then we'll figure it out together," he assured her, his voice steady. "You won't be alone in this. I promise to support you every step of the way." She looked down at her hands, contemplating, then met his gaze with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "Why the sudden change of heart, Thaddeus? I mean, just a few weeks ago, you were focused on, well, the bet." "I know," he admitted, feeling the weight of his past mistakes. "But you've changed me, Elara. You've shown me what it means to care about something beyond my wealth and status. I want to be better not just for you, but for myself." Elara studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "If I say yes, you'll have to promise me one thing." "Anything," he said, his heart racing. "You have to be honest with me. No more games. If we're doing this, it has to be real." "I promise," he said, his sincerity pouring out. "No more games. Just honesty." A smile broke across her face, and it was as if the sun had come out from behind the clouds. "Okay, then. Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, Thaddeus and Elara worked closely together, planning and organizing her first gallery exhibit. They spent countless hours brainstorming ideas, discussing themes, and even visiting potential venues. Each meeting brought them closer, and Thaddeus found himself falling deeper for her, not just as a challenge, but as a partner and a friend. One evening, as they were putting together a portfolio of her artwork, Elara looked up from her sketches, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I can't believe we're actually doing this. It feels surreal." "It's happening, and I'm proud of you," Thaddeus said, watching her with admiration. "You're going to shine, Elara. I can feel it." "Thank you for believing in me," she replied, her voice softening. "You've really become an important part of my life." I didn't expect that when I first started babysitting Lily. Thaddeus felt his heart swell at her words. You've been more than just a babysitter to us. You've brought joy into our lives. As they continued to work, the atmosphere shifted from professional to personal. They shared stories about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. They laughed over silly memories and found solace in each other's vulnerabilities. Thaddeus felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years, and it was all because of her. One night, after a particularly long session of planning, Thaddeus found himself lingering at her door. I should probably go, he said, glancing at his watch. But I don't want to. Elara smiled, her cheeks flushed. You can stay a little longer if you want. I mean, we're in the middle of everything, right? Right, he said, stepping inside her cozy apartment. The walls were adorned with her paintings, each one telling a different story, each one more beautiful than the last. Your work is amazing. Thanks, she said, a hint of shyness creeping into her voice. I still have so much to learn, though. You're already incredible, he reassured her, his gaze lingering on a canvas that depicted a sunset over the ocean. This one, it's breathtaking. Elara walked over to the painting, her fingers brushing against the surface. It's inspired by the view from your balcony. I always thought it was magical. Thaddeus felt a warmth spread through him. You captured it perfectly. As the night wore on, they talked about everything and nothing, their laughter echoing in the small room. Thaddeus felt a sense of belonging he hadn't realized he'd been missing. But as the evening came to a close, a thought nagged at him. He remembered the friends who had mocked him for pursuing Elara in the first place, the ones who saw love as a game. Could he really abandon that part of his life for something more meaningful? Elara must have sensed his sudden tension. Thaddeus, what's wrong? He hesitated, weighing his words carefully. I've been thinking about my friends. They don't understand this, what we're building together. Are you worried about what they'll think? She asked, her brow furrowing. Yeah, I guess I am, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. They see me as this tech mogul, and I don't want them to think I'm throwing it all away for you. Elara stepped closer, her eyes searching his. You can't let them dictate your happiness. This is your life, Thaddeus. You deserve to be happy. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope. You're right. I need to do this for us. Then do it, she urged, her voice steady. Don't let anyone hold you back. With renewed conviction, Thaddeus took her hand in his, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. Thank you for being you. I don't want to lose sight of that. Elara smiled softly, squeezing his hand. You won't. We're in this together. And in that moment, as they stood in her apartment surrounded by her dreams, Thaddeus knew he was on the right path. He had made a choice, and it was one that he would never regret. Together, they were building something real, something beautiful, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Thaddeus stood in front of the expansive windows of his mansion, gazing out at the ocean waves crashing against the rocky shore. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue over everything it touched. It was a beautiful evening, but his mind was racing. The grand gala he had organized to benefit the charity he had pledged to support was just around the corner. More than just a social event, this gala represented a fresh start not just for him, but for Elara as well. He had poured his heart and soul into making this event a success, determined to prove to Elara that his intentions were genuine. It was not merely an opportunity to raise funds, but a platform to showcase her art, something she had always dreamed of doing. The thought of seeing her paintings on display filled him with both excitement and anxiety. As he moved about the lavishly decorated ballroom, overseeing the final touches, he spotted Elara across the room. She was talking animatedly with one of the event planners, her hands gesturing enthusiastically as she explained her vision for the art display. Thaddeus couldn't help but admire her passion, it was infectious. The way she lit up when discussing her art reminded him of the first time he had seen her painting at the parquet, moment that had changed everything for him. "Thaddeus!" Elara called out, breaking his reverie. She approached him, her smile bright against the backdrop of the elegantly adorned room. "I can't believe how beautiful everything looks. You really outdid yourself." "It's nothing compared to the beauty of your work," he replied, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "I just wanted to create a space where your art could shine." Elara blushed slightly, her eyes sparkling with appreciation. "I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. It means the world to me." Just then, the sound of laughter echoed from a group of Thaddeus's friends gathered at the bar. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They were the same friends who had initially dared him to pursue Elara, and he could already hear their teasing remarks echoing in his mind. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unease. "Hey, why don't we check on the final arrangements together?" Thaddeus suggested, eager to steer Elara away from the looming presence of his friends. "Sure, lead the way," she replied, her enthusiasm unwavering. As they walked side by side, Thaddeus felt a sense of contentment wash over him. They moved through the crowd, discussing the seating arrangements, the flow of the evening, and how best to showcase Elara's pieces. Each moment spent with her deepened his admiration and affection. "Do you think people will really connect with my art?" Elara asked, glancing at him with a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Absolutely," Thaddeus assured her. "Your work has a story, and people will see that. They'll feel that connection. You're an incredible artist, Elara. Your emotions come through in every stroke." She smiled, but he could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. "I just hope they understand the message I'm trying to convey. Art is so personal, you know." "I do know," he said earnestly. "And that's what makes it powerful. It's not just about aesthetics, it's about emotion and experience. You have that in spades." Just as he was about to add more, a familiar voice called out from the other side of the room. It was Jason, one of his closest friends, with an unmistakable smirk on his face. Thaddeus felt a wave of irritation wash over him. "Hey, Thaddeus. Looks like you've finally found someone to keep you company," Jason shouted, laughter bubbling up among the others. Elara's expression shifted, a shadow passing over her face. Thaddeus could see the discomfort in her eyes as Jason sauntered over, flanked by a couple of other friends. They were oblivious to the spark that had ignited between him and Elara, treating it like a mere game. "Is this your big plan to win her over? Throw a charity gala?" Jason teased, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "What's next, a serenade?" "Enough, Jason," Thaddeus snapped, his voice low but firm. "This isn't a joke." "Oh, come on." Jason laughed, waving his hand dismissively. "We're just having fun. You really think you'll win her over with a little art show? She's not some trophy." "Actually," Elara interjected, surprising both men with her boldness, "I'm not a trophy, nor am I someone to be won. I'm here to showcase my work and make a difference." Thaddeus has been incredibly supportive, and I appreciate that. Thaddeus felt a swell of pride as Elara stood her ground. Her confidence shone through, and he could see a flicker of admiration in her eyes as she faced his friends. He placed a reassuring hand on her back, a silent gesture of support. "Exactly," he said, stepping forward. "This is about something much bigger than any of you realize. Elara deserves respect, and so does her art. I don't need to prove anything to you, especially not at my own event." Jason held up his hands in mock surrender. All right. Just having a little fun, man. But it's good to see you're serious about her." "I am serious about her," Thaddeus said, his voice steady. "And if you can't take that seriously, then maybe you should reconsider what you value in friendship." Elara looked at Thaddeus, a mixture of surprise and gratitude in her expression. The tension in the air thickened, but it was broken when one of the event planners approached them, interrupting the uncomfortable moment. "Thaddeus, everything is set for the art display," she announced, glancing between him and Elara. "Shall we gather everyone for the opening?" "Of course," Thaddeus replied, grateful for the distraction. He turned to Elara, flashing her a warm smile. "Are you ready for this?" "Ready as I'll ever be," she said, her earlier apprehension fading as excitement took over. As they moved toward the center of the room, Thaddeus took a moment to admire Elara's work. The pieces were vibrant, filled with emotion, and each told a story that resonated deeply. He could hardly believe how lucky he was to be a part of this moment. With the guests gathered, Thaddeus took the microphone, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice steady. "Tonight, we come together not only to support a worthy cause but to celebrate the extraordinary talent of Elara, who has put her heart and soul into her art. Elara, would you like to say a few words?" Elara stepped forward, her cheeks flushed with a mix of gratitude and nerves. "Thank you, Thaddeus. And thank you all for being here tonight. Art has always been my passion, a way for me to express my experiences and emotions. I hope that in sharing my work, I can inspire others to find their own voices. Thank you for believing in me." As she spoke, Thaddeus watched her, completely captivated. She was radiant, and her authenticity shone through in every word. The applause that followed was thunderous, and he felt a swell of pride for her and all that she had accomplished. After the speeches, Thaddeus and Elara moved through the crowd, mingling with guests and discussing her art. He felt a sense of purpose, knowing he was helping her fulfill a dream. "Tonight is only the beginning," he whispered to her as they stood in front of a particularly striking piece that depicted a tumultuous sea, mirroring the struggles of life. Elara nodded, her eyes sparkling. "Thank you for everything you've done, Thaddeus. I really couldn't have done this without you. Just wait until we see how much we can accomplish together," he said, his heart racing as their eyes locked. But as the night continued, Thaddeus couldn't shake the feeling that challenges were still lurking in the shadows, waiting to test the bond they were building. For now, though, he decided to focus on the moment, allowing the warmth of their connection to guide him through the unfolding night. As evening fell over the coastal town, the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Thaddeus Harrington stood at the edge of his expansive terrace, staring out at the Pacific Ocean. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks below was a reminder of the turmoil brewing inside him. Just days away from the charity gala, he was aware that the shadows of his past actions loomed larger than ever. His phone buzzed in his pocket, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a message from Elara, a simple, "Can we talk?" that sent his heart racing. He quickly typed a response, "Of course. Where?" Within moments, they agreed to meet at a small cafe down the street. As he arrived at the quaint establishment, his heart pounded, anticipation and anxiety swirling within him. Elara was already seated at a corner table, her expression serious as she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. The way her brow was furrowed told him that something was weighing heavily on her mind. "Hey," Thaddeus greeted softly as he sat across from her, searching her eyes for answers. "Hi," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked down at her coffee, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us." Thaddeus took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "I know things have been complicated, especially with my past and the bet," he began, choosing his words carefully. "But I want you to know that my feelings for you are real. I'm not playing a game anymore." Elara's gaze finally met his, and he could see the conflict swirling within her. "That's just it, Thaddeus. I don't know if I can trust you. The way everything started. It feels tainted." His stomach dropped. "I understand why you feel that way. But I've changed. I've worked hard to be better, to be someone you can rely on." "Have you?" she challenged, crossing her arms defensively. Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? I can't go through that again. I've already been hurt so much. The weight of her words hit him like a tidal wave. I get it. I really do. But I promise you, this is different. I've faced the consequences of my actions, and I'm ready to prove it to you. Just give me a chance. Elara shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But how do I know you're not just saying this because you feel guilty? You could still be the same man who made a bet on my heart. I never expected to fall for you, Elara, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. You've shown me what it means to truly live, to appreciate the beauty in life. I want to support you, your dreams, everything. I want to be a better man, for you and for myself. For a moment, silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. Elara's expression softened slightly, but doubt still clouded her features. I don't know if I can risk my heart again. Not when I still feel the sting of my past. Thaddeus leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice. You're worth that risk, Elara. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust. But please, don't let my mistake steal your chance at happiness. Your friends, she replied, her voice trembling. They don't see the change in you. They only see the man who made a bet. What if they're right? What if you haven't really changed? They don't define who I am. I've realized that I don't want to be part of that world anymore. I want to support you, not just sit in their shadow. I'm ready to walk away from that life if it means being with you. Elara's expression shifted, uncertainty warring with the flicker of hope in her eyes. And what if they try to pull you back in? What if you can't resist? I'll fight it, he declared, determination fueling his words. I'm not the man I was before. I want to be better, not just for you, but for my daughter. I want to be a role model for her, to show her what love and respect look like. A moment of vulnerability passed between them, the tension easing slightly. Elara looked down at her coffee, contemplating his words. I want to believe you, Thaddeus. I really do. But it's going to take time for me to trust you fully. You have to understand that. I understand, he said softly, his heart aching with longing and hope. I'll give you all the time you need. Just know that I'm committed to this, to us. Elara took a deep breath, her resolve still fragile. I just need to know that you're not doing this for a bet anymore. That you're not just trying to win me over because of what your friends said. Believe me, it's not about that. It never was, he reassured her, reaching across the table to take her hand. I want to build something real with you, something that lasts. I'm in this for the long haul, Elara. She met his gaze with a mix of fear and yearning, her heart torn between the past and the possibilities of the future. Okay, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. But this is uncharted territory for me. I need to see you prove that you've changed. Thaddeus nodded solemnly, feeling the weight of his commitment. I will. I promise you, I won't let you down. As they sat there, the cafe buzzed around them, but in that moment, it was just the two of them, caught in a fragile dance of hope and uncertainty. Elara's grip on his hand tightened slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the journey ahead. Yet, unbeknownst to them, shadows lingered just outside the cafe's warm embrace. The whispers of Thaddeus's friends echoed in the back of his mind, warnings that he had chosen to ignore. But now, as he faced his deepest fears and insecurities, he was determined to not only prove himself to Elara but also to stand firm against the looming threats of his past. As they left the cafe, a sense of cautious optimism filled the air between them, but the storm was far from over. Thaddeus knew he had to confront the very people who had once been his closest allies, ready to challenge everything he believed in for the sake of the woman who had captured his heart. Thaddeus stood on the balcony of his mansion, the salty breeze ruffling his hair as he gazed out at the ocean's endless expanse. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, but the beauty of the scene did little to ease the weight on his shoulders. He had made a promise to Elara, one that he was determined to keep, but the path to redemption felt fraught with challenges. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the stakes. He had lost many friends in the process of pursuing Elara, and the whispers in the elite social circles about his transformation were growing louder. Yet, in his heart, he felt a sense of peace that he had never experienced before. He knew he was on the right track, even if it meant walking it alone. That evening, he met Elara at the community center where they had decided to host art classes for underprivileged youth. The walls were adorned with colorful paintings, a testament to the creativity of local artists. Elara was there, setting up supplies, the soft glow of the overhead lights illuminating her features. She looked up as Thaddeus entered, a smile breaking on her face that made his heart race. "Hey, you're early," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "I wanted to make sure everything was perfect," he replied, crossing the room to help her with the easels. "I know how much this means to you." "It means a lot, Thaddeus," she said, her expression softening. "I can't believe we're actually doing this. Helping kids discover their passion for art. It's a dream." Thaddeus watched her as she spoke, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You inspired me," he confessed, his voice steady. "I've spent too long focusing on the wrong things. You've shown me what really matters." Elara looked at him, her smile faltering slightly. "And what exactly is that?" she asked, her tone gently probing. "Helping others, making a real difference in the world," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "I want to prove to you and to myself that I'm capable of more than just business deals and tech innovations. I want to be someone who contributes positively." She studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I appreciate that you're trying, Thaddeus. But it's going to take time. Trust isn't given lightly." "I understand," he said, his heart racing. "I'm willing to earn it, no matter how long it takes." As they worked together, the atmosphere in the room transformed. They painted, laughed, and shared stories about their lives. Elara recounted tales from her childhood, of the struggles she faced growing up, while Thaddeus opened up about the pressures of his upbringing in the tech world. "I always felt like I had to be perfect," he admitted, watching her as she moved around the room, checking on the kids who had begun to arrive. "It led me down some dark paths." "Perfection isn't real," Elara replied, her tone soothing. "It's a myth that society pushes on us. What matters is being authentic, being true to who you are." He nodded, absorbing her words. They were wise, but they also resonated with his desire to change. "I want to be that person, Elara. I want to be someone you can trust, someone who supports you." "Then be that person," she said simply, her gaze steady. "It's not about grand gestures. It's about the small, consistent actions that show you've changed." As the weeks passed, Thaddeus found himself drawn deeper into the project. He poured his resources into the community center, helping to renovate the space and providing art supplies for the children. He was no longer the ruthless businessman, he was a patron of the arts, a mentor to kids who needed guidance. Yet, it wasn't without its challenges. His former friends often mocked him for his newfound purpose, questioning why he was wasting his time. One evening, he met with a few of them at a bar, and their laughter echoed in his ears, a stark contrast to the fulfillment he felt at the center. "Seriously, Thaddeus? You're trading in high-stakes deals for paint and canvases," one of them sneered, taking a sip of his drink. "What happened to you?" Thaddeus clenched his jaw, anger bubbling within him. "I'm doing something meaningful," he replied, his voice steady. "Something that actually matters." "Meaningful?" another chimed in, shaking his head. "You're just playing a game. You'll come back to your senses soon enough." But Thaddeus didn't waver. He was resolute in his decision to change his life for the better, for Elara and for himself. As he left the bar that night, he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. He didn't need their approval, he was finding his own path. The next day, he returned to the community center, where Ilara was organizing an art exhibit for the kids' work. The walls were adorned with vibrant pieces, each telling a story of hope and resilience. As he walked in, her face lit up with a smile that made his heart soar. "Look at this," she exclaimed, pointing at a particularly colorful piece. This was done by a 10-year-old who was shy at first. "She's come so far." Thaddeus approached the painting, admiring the child's creativity. "It's incredible," he said. "You've truly made a difference here." Ilara turned to him, her eyes sparkling. "We've made a difference," she corrected gently. "You've been a huge part of this." He shrugged slightly, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "I'm just doing what I can." As they continued to prepare for the exhibit, the bond between them deepened. They shared more personal stories, and Thaddeus found himself opening up in ways he had never imagined. He felt lighter, as if the burdens he had carried for so long were gradually lifting. One evening, as they were cleaning up after a long day, Ilara paused and looked at him seriously. "Thaddeus, I want to thank you for everything you've done. You've been a real support, not just for me but for all the kids here." "I'm just getting started," he replied, his tone earnest. "I want to keep helping, keep growing. I want to be someone you can rely on." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, he felt a flicker of hope that perhaps she was beginning to trust him. But then, just as quickly, a shadow crossed her face. "I want that too, but it's hard for me to let my guard down." "I understand," he said, stepping closer. "But I promise you, I'm in this for the long haul. I won't give up on you or this." As the days turned into weeks, they began to form a partnership not just in art, but in life. They faced challenges together, from dealing with the kids' various emotions to navigating the complexities of their own feelings. Thaddeus felt a sense of purpose he had never known, and it was all thanks to Ilara. Yet, as their connection deepened, so did the vulnerability that came with it. Thaddeus could sense Ilara's hesitance, the fear that lingered just below the surface. He wanted to reassure her, to show her that he was committed to this path of transformation and to her. One afternoon, as they sat in the community center surrounded by the laughter of children, Thaddeus turned to her, his heart racing. "Ilara, I know I've made mistakes in the past. But I want to build something real with you. Not just for now, but for the future." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Thaddeus, I appreciate that, but it's not that simple. I've been hurt before. I can't just jump into something without knowing it's solid." "I get that," he replied, his voice steady. "But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I want to show you that I'm serious about this." Ilara smiled softly, but he could see the doubt in her eyes. "It's going to take time, you know. Trust is a fragile thing." "I'm willing to wait," Thaddeus said, feeling a surge of determination. "You're worth it, Ilara. I'll prove it to you, day by day." With those words, he felt a shift in the air between them, a glimmer of hope that perhaps they could navigate this path together. They were both on a journey of healing, and he was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, as long as it meant being by her side. The sun was setting over the California coastline, casting a golden hue across the horizon as Thaddeus Harrington stood on the balcony of his mansion, staring into the distance. His heart raced as he thought about the upcoming charity event, a culmination of everything he had worked for in the past few weeks. It wasn't just about fundraising for a good cause, it was about proving to Ilara that he was committed to her, to a life that was no longer dictated by the whims of his wealthy friends or past mistakes. "Thaddeus, you look like you've seen a ghost," said a familiar voice, pulling him back from his thoughts. It was his friend Marcus, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Nervous about the gala?" "Nervous doesn't quite capture it," Thaddeus replied, running a hand through his hair. "I feel like it's a make-or-break moment for me and Ilara. Marcus smirked, crossing his arms. Still trying to win her over after the whole bet fiasco. You do know that some of our friends think you're making a fool of yourself, right? Thaddeus straightened, an edge of determination in his voice. It's not a game anymore, Marcus. I care about her. I want to show her that I'm serious about changing. Changing? Marcus laughed, shaking his head. You think that just because you throw a fancy charity event, she's going to forget how this all started? Thaddeus clenched his fists, frustration bubbling to the surface. You don't understand. I've lost sight of what's important, and I'm trying to fix that. If I can't do this for her, then I've lost everything. Good luck with that, buddy, Marcus said, his tone dripping with skepticism. Just don't come crying to me if you mess it all up. With that, Marcus left, leaving Thaddeus alone with his thoughts once again. He took a deep breath, steeling his resolve. He would make this work. He had to. As the evening approached, the mansion transformed into a dazzling venue, adorned with lights and flowers, glamorous enough to impress even the most discerning guests. Thaddeus moved through the crowd, greeting attendees and making small talk, but his mind was elsewhere on Elara. He hoped she would arrive soon. Finally, when he spotted Elara walking through the entrance, his heart skipped a beat. She looked stunning in a simple but elegant dress that accentuated her features, her hair cascading down in soft waves. The moment their eyes met, a smile broke across her face, and Thaddeus felt a warmth spreading through him. Thaddeus, she called out, her voice bright and full of life. Elara, he replied, stepping towards her. You look incredible. Thank you, she beamed, glancing around at the decorations. This place is amazing. You really outdid yourself. I wanted it to be special, especially for you, he said, his voice earnest. I'm glad you're here. As the evening progressed, Elara's art was on display, and Thaddeus took every opportunity to showcase her talent to the guests. This piece, he said to a small group, gesturing to a vibrant painting, is by Elara. The way she captures emotion through color is simply breathtaking. Wow, it's beautiful, one of the guests said, leaning closer to admire the details. You must be very talented. Elara flushed with pride, glancing at Thaddeus, who was watching her intently. The admiration in his gaze made her heart flutter. But just as the mood began to lift, Thaddeus felt a familiar presence behind him. Hey there, Thaddeus, a voice drawled. It was Jake, Elara's ex-boyfriend, a roguish grin on his face. I see you're still trying to play the knight in shining armor. Jake, Thaddeus said curtly, irritation creeping into his tone. What are you doing here? Came to see how low you'd sink, Jake said, crossing his arms. You really think this is going to win her back? Throwing a party like this? Newsflash, it's not working. Elara, who had been chatting with another guest, turned at the sound of Jake's voice. Her expression shifted, and Thaddeus could see the tension in her shoulders. Thaddeus, she said softly, concern etched on her face. Is everything okay? Just a little chat, he replied, his eyes locked on Jake. Nothing to worry about. Jake stepped closer, smirking. You're wasting your time, Harrington. Elara and I have history, something you can't just erase with a few fancy words. Thaddeus clenched his jaw, the anger bubbling beneath the surface. She's not a prize to be won, Jake. If she's with me, it's because she wants to be. Elara took a step forward, trying to defuse the situation. You both need to calm down. This is supposed to be a nice evening. Nice evening? Jake scoffed. More like a desperate ploy. Thaddeus, you're nothing more than a rich guy playing at being a good person. Thaddeus took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. I'm not just playing a role, Jake. I've changed. I'm trying to be someone better, someone worthy of her. Better? Look at you, Jake said, a mocking tone in his voice. You're still the same shallow guy who made a bet to get her attention. Elara's face fell, and Thaddeus felt a pang of regret at how Jake's words affected her. Elara, listen, he said urgently, turning to her. I know I messed up. But I'm not that person anymore. I want to prove it to you. Prove it, she repeated, her voice trembling slightly. How can I trust that? You're surrounded by the same people who encouraged this bet in the first place. Because I'm willing to walk away from them, Thaddeus said, his voice steady. I don't care what they think. I care about you and what you mean to me. I want to show you that I'm serious. Are you? Elara asked, her eyes searching his. Are you really willing to walk away from everything you've built? I am, Thaddeus replied, the conviction in his voice ringing true. I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I'm not playing games anymore. The tension hung thick in the air, and Jake let out a derisive laugh. You think you can just walk away from your friends and your reputation? You're delusional. Maybe I am, Thaddeus shot back, but I'd rather be delusional than a coward who doesn't fight for what he wants. Elara's gaze softened, but doubt lingered in her eyes. You can't expect me to just forget the past, Thaddeus. I'm not asking you to forget, he said earnestly. I'm asking you to give me a chance to see who I am now, not who I was. The moment was fragile, the air electric with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Thaddeus could feel the weight of Jake's presence hovering nearby, but he focused solely on Elara. Please, he added, his voice dropping to a whisper. Let me show you. Let me prove that I can be the man you deserve. Just then, the gala's host called for everyone's attention, but Thaddeus hardly noticed. His world had narrowed down to Elara and Jake, the tension between them palpable. Think about it, Elara, Jake interjected, smirking. Do you really want to get involved with someone who can't even stand up to his own friends? Thaddeus felt his heart race. I'm standing up to you right now, Jake. I'm done with your games and your manipulation. Elara deserves better than this. Elara looked between the two men, her expression conflicted. Would she trust Thaddeus, or would she let Jake's words seep into her heart? Thaddeus, she finally said, her voice trembling. I need time to think. Take all the time you need, he replied, desperation creeping into his tone. But just know that I'm here, ready to fight for you. As Elara stepped back, uncertainty clouding her features, Thaddeus couldn't shake the feeling that everything was hanging in the balance. He'd promised himself he would change, and now he was faced with the real possibility of losing Elara for good. With that thought echoing in his mind, he turned back to Jake, eyes fierce. You won't ruin this for me, Jake. I won't let you. Jake's grin faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. We'll see about that, Harrington. You're in over your head. Thaddeus didn't respond. Instead, he turned away, determined to focus on the evening and on Elara's reaction to what he had said. He would not let Jake's presence ruin the opportunity he had to show her who he really was. As the gala continued, the buzz of conversation and laughter surrounded him, but all Thaddeus could think about was Elara, the chance he had to prove himself, and the battle that lay ahead both against his own past and the lingering shadow of Jake. As the evening of the charity gala unfolded, the grand ballroom of Thaddeus Harrington's seaside mansion shimmered with elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the crowd, a sea of tailored suits and glamorous gowns. The air was filled with the sound of clinking glasses and soft laughter, but Thaddeus felt a storm brewing inside him. Tonight was the culmination of everything he had fought for, not just the funds for the charity, but for Elara. As he stood at the podium, Thaddeus looked out at the sea of faces, his heart racing. The moment he had planned for was finally here, and yet, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that coiled within him. Elara was standing to the side, her presence a comforting balm, but he could also sense her tension. She had been distant since the revelation about the bet, and he knew he had to win her back tonight. Taking a deep breath, he began, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight to support a cause that is very close to my heart. We are here not just to raise funds, but to create a lasting impact in our community. And I want to take a moment to introduce someone who embodies that spirit of hope and creativity, Alara. The applause was polite, but Thaddeus could see the uncertainty flicker in Alara's eyes as she stepped forward. He could feel the tension in the air, a palpable reminder of the emotional distance that had grown between them since the gala's preparation began. "Thank you, Thaddeus," she said, her voice steady yet tinged with hesitation. "I'm honored to share my work with you all tonight." As she began to speak about her art and the inspiration behind her pieces, Thaddeus realized how much he admired her strength. Her passion radiated, captivating the audience, yet he could see her falter when she caught sight of her ex-boyfriend, Jason, lurking at the edge of the crowd. The way he smirked, whispering to a companion, made Thaddeus's blood boil. He knew the man meant trouble, and he couldn't let Jason's presence overshadow this moment for Alara. "Let's remember," Thaddeus interjected, stepping closer to the microphone, "that art is not only a reflection of the artist's journey but also a testament to their resilience. Alara's works are not just beautiful, they are a voice for those who have struggled and overcome." The audience applauded again, but Alara didn't meet his gaze. Instead, she looked down, her eyes clouded with uncertainty. As she stepped back, Thaddeus felt a pang of desperation. He needed to make her understand that his feelings were real, that he had changed beyond the confines of their initial bet. "Before we continue," he called out, his voice resonating through the room, "I need to share something that has weighed heavily on my heart. Many of you may have heard whispers about a bet I made regarding my pursuit of Alara. But I want to clarify something. That bet was merely the spark that ignited my transformation. What began as a foolish challenge turned into a journey of self-discovery. And through it all, I fell in love with Alara for who she truly is, not just as a goal to conquer." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Thaddeus could feel the weight of their scrutiny. Alara's expression shifted from surprise to hurt as she took a step back, her hands trembling at her sides. "Thaddeus," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, let me finish," he urged, desperation creeping into his tone. "I was foolish to think I could play with people's hearts, to treat love like a game. But Alara, you showed me what it means to truly care for someone, to support their dreams. You inspired me to become a better person, and for that, I am eternally grateful." The audience was silent, captivated by the raw emotion in his voice. Thaddeus continued, "I understand if you're angry, or if you feel betrayed. But I hope you can see that I want to dedicate my life to being the man you deserve. I've even made changes in my own life, distancing myself from those who don't support this new path." Just then, Jason stepped forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, come on, Thaddeus. You think this is some grand romance? You're just a businessman playing at being a hero. What kind of man needs a bet to realize he loves someone?" Thaddeus's heart raced, the room suddenly feeling smaller as he faced Jason. "I don't need your approval, Jason. You've had your chance with Alara, and you failed her. I'm here to support her dreams, not tear them down for my own amusement." Alara looked between the two men, her expression a mixture of anguish and confusion. "Thaddeus, I don't know if I can trust you. You hurt me," she said, her voice trembling. "How can I be sure this is real?" "Because I'm standing here, risking everything," he replied, his voice firm yet gentle. "I've lost friends over this, my reputation is on the line, but none to sever the love that I have for you. What I did was wrong, and I own that. But I've also learned what it means to care for someone beyond what I can gain from it." The room remained silent as everyone absorbed his words, the weight of the moment hanging heavily in the air. Then, in a surprising turn, Alara's expression shifted. "You said you wanted to create a lasting impact, right? That you wanted to help the community?" Her voice was quieter now, but Thaddeus could see the spark of curiosity igniting in her eyes. "Yes, absolutely," he replied, heart pounding. "That's why I'm here tonight. Did you know that the institution you're supporting tonight helped my family when we were struggling? They gave us art supplies for free so I could express myself when we didn't have much. Ilara's gaze softened as she spoke, her voice trembling with emotion. I thought I'd lost that connection. But if you're serious about this, maybe. Just maybe, there's something real we can build together. Thaddeus felt a rush of hope flooding through him. Ilara, I had no idea, he said, stepping closer. I want to be part of that journey with you. I want to help others the way you were helped. I want to show you that you can trust me, that I'm not that man anymore. Ilara's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she searched his face, looking for the truth in his words. So, what now? You want me to just forgive and forget, she asked, her voice steadier. No, he said, shaking his head. I want to earn your trust back, and I want to prove that my intentions are genuine. I will work hard to show you that I'm a better man than I was before. As the applause erupted around them, Thaddeus took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Ilara, can we start anew? I want to support your dreams, to be the man you can rely on. I know I don't deserve it, but I hope you'll give me that chance. For a moment, the room faded away, and it was just the two of them locked in this shared moment of vulnerability. Ilara's expression softened, and with a shaky breath, she replied, maybe we can try. But it will take time, Thaddeus. I can't promise anything, but I'm willing to see where this goes. Thaddeus felt a wave of relief wash over him as he reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. That's all I ask, he said softly, his heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you for believing in us. As the audience erupted into applause once more, the two stood together, united by their journey, a journey that had begun with a bet but had transformed into something infinitely more beautiful. Together, they faced the future, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, hand in hand, heart to heart.